Let me speak plainly. If you wish to become wealthy, truly, deeply, enduringly wealthy, you must understand one law above all others. The man who leaks his life to the world forfeits the energy required to conquer it. There are only two places your energy can go: inward to construct or outward to impress. But no man can do both and still build an empire. Understand this now, and your ascent begins today. Fail to grasp it, and you will remain among the ranks of the average, those who confuse visibility with power, approval with purpose, and noise with strategy. You must stop sharing your life, not because secrecy is power, but because silence is, and it is in silence that self-mastery is born. Let us tear away the illusions together. Let us go where few dare, to the inner dominion of mind and motive, where all wealth begins. Reason 1. Because emotional exposure is a liability, not an asset. We live in a time where men mistake openness for strength. They imagine that vulnerability is virtue. They are taught that to be seen is to be understood, and to be understood is to be rewarded. This is false. When you share your struggles prematurely, you weaken your resolve. When you parade your dreams before the world, you invite energies that dilute them. When you seek sympathy instead of silence, you mortgage your momentum for a pat on the back. Never forget, applause is a poor substitute for achievement. The man who seeks to be validated before he has completed the work is not a builder, he is a beggar. And wealth is not built by begging. Do you think Andrew Carnegie paused his plans to explain them to strangers? Do you imagine Rockefeller spent his mornings seeking approval from the masses? Number. The great ones moved in silence and spoke only through results. Why? Because emotion is currency, and the undisciplined man spends it carelessly. Emotional detachment is not apathy, it is wisdom. It is the realization that your feelings are not facts, and your mood is not your mission. When you detach from the need to be seen, you gain the power to see clearly. And clarity, my friend, is the beginning of conquest. He who commands himself does not require commentary. He who owns his mind does not owe an explanation. The undisciplined mind wants to share, to shout, to be recognized. But the disciplined mind knows that the furnace of greatness burns in solitude. If you cannot endure silence, you are not yet ready for success. For wealth demands that you become a fortress impregnable to gossip, to praise, to insult, to distraction. Reason 2, because peace produces power, and sharing invites chaos. The mind is a garden. Whatever you allow into it will grow, and when you share your life with everyone, you give weeds the soil they crave. Do you know why most men remain poor? Not for lack of talent nor opportunity, but because they cannot protect their inner world from outer noise. You must learn the principle of thought first. Before you act, you must think. Before you build, you must design. Before you speak, you must know. But when your life is on display, your goals, your emotions, your private battles, you sacrifice thought for reaction. You live not to build, but to respond. The man who reacts will always be governed. The man who responds with calm is the one who governs. You must train your mind to be calm in the face of chaos. And you cannot do this if your identity is spread across timelines and comment sections. Withdraw not out of fear, but out of strategy. Do not share your next move. Sharpen it in secret. Let your actions speak so loudly they drown the silence behind them. Every time you explain yourself, you dilute your focus. Every time you announce your plan, you surrender the edge of surprise. You must become unpredictable, not because it is clever, but because it is essential. Calmness is the byproduct of control, and control is born from internal silence. Do not give the world your thoughts, give it your results. Reason 3, because mastery requires conservation. All things that grow require protection. The seed must be buried before it blooms. The child must be sheltered before he walks. So too with your dream. It is not weakness to protect what you are building. It is wisdom. Your mind, your vision, your strategy, they are sacred. And what is sacred must not be made public. When you share your life with the world, you interrupt its incubation. The law of conservation applies not only to energy but to intention. A wealthy man is not one who has many opinions. He is one who has mastered few principles and applied them without distraction. You cannot master your mind if you are constantly performing for others. You cannot build a disciplined life while your attention is up for auction. Close the doors of your life. Sharpen the sword behind the curtain. Let discipline become your religion. The man who conserves his energy, his time, and his thoughts becomes unstoppable not because he is magical, but because he is deliberate. This is the law of mental neutrality. It states that power belongs to the man who does not leak emotion, does not crave recognition, and does not react to provocation. Master this, and you will master money. For money follows control, not chaos. Reason 4. Because the crowd cannot teach you what only solitude reveals. You were not born to fit in. You were born to command. But command does not come from applause. It comes from authority over self. And authority cannot be granted by others. It must be earned in the arena of solitude. If you share your every thought, every plan, every ambition, you remain tied to the crowd, and the crowd does not want you to rise. The crowd wants you to conform. Do not share your life with those who have not earned access to it, and most have not. True wealth of spirit, of mind, of money is born in separation. This is not loneliness. It is leadership. Leadership demands that you go where others won't, that you think longer, feel less, and act with precision. You must learn to trust your own mind. You must train it, feed it, guard it, and you cannot do this if you are addicted to being understood. Let me make this plain. No great man was ever understood in the beginning. He was doubted, mocked, ignored, but he did not seek understanding. He sought mastery, and in time, mastery spoke louder than any explanation could. Stop explaining. Start executing. Reason 5. Because the rich are focused and the poor are distracted. Success is not mysterious. It is mathematical. Whatever you focus on grows. Whatever you ignore weakens. And when you share your life with everyone, you fracture your focus into 1,000 pieces. The man who wins is not the most gifted. He is the most concentrated. He is not distracted by validation. He is devoted to vision. This is the principle of inner authority, the ability to govern your thoughts without consulting the world. If you can command your attention, you can command your results. If you can detach from opinions, you can attach to purpose. If you can think independently, you can act decisively. And decision is what wealth is built upon. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you train your mind in mastery. Every time you guard your emotions, you build inner capital. Every time you resist the urge to share, you grow the power to create. Your life is your laboratory, not your performance, not your diary, not your marketplace for compliments. Keep it sacred. For when the mind becomes quiet, the vision becomes loud. And when the vision becomes loud, the path becomes clear. And when the path becomes clear, action becomes unstoppable. Now go. Withdraw to build, detach to rise, focus to conquer. The riches you seek do not lie in exposure. They lie in execution. And no man can execute with excellence if his energy is spent on explaining. The world does not need your updates. It needs your greatness. And greatness, true, commanding, lasting greatness, begins the moment you stop sharing your life and start mastering your mind. Let us now turn inward, where all external success is first born. For every dollar that enters your bank account is first constructed in your mental vault. And the strength of that vault depends upon the one discipline most men refuse to develop: silence. Not just silence in speech, but silence of approval seeking, silence of performance, silence of emotional leakage. Because the moment you stop sharing, you stop explaining, and when you stop explaining, you begin executing. I say again, what the world calls transparency, I call exposure. What the world calls openness, I call dispersion. What the world rewards with likes and comments, destiny punishes with delay. Why? Because every word you spill outward becomes one less watt of energy you have to focus inward. And focus, let it be known, is wealth's first engine. Now let us go deeper. There is a reason the richest minds in history lived behind closed doors. There is a reason Carnegie built in silence, Ford thought in isolation, Edison disappeared from public life for days at a time. These men were not antisocial. They were anti-fragmentation. They understood the truth. Wealth demands mental concentration so intense, so undisturbed, so focused that even the slightest leak of energy becomes a sabotage. You may think you are being noble by being open. You may think you are inspiring others by sharing your process. But I tell you this, a half-built temple is not a monument. It is a ruin. Do not speak until your results are undeniable. Do not reveal your hand until your victory is sealed. Do not announce your plans until the contracts are signed, the systems are tested, and the outcome is irreversible. Because if you share too soon, you give others the ability to question you. And when others question you, doubt takes root. And when doubt grows, your will weakens. And when your will weakens, you quit not because your plan was wrong, but because your spirit was interrupted. That interruption, you caused it. With your own mouth, with your own need to be seen. You must unlearn this. You must replace this social instinct with a higher law, the law of concealed power. Just as electricity is only potent when wired properly, your life must be internally wired for greatness. That means clarity without chatter, discipline without discussion, execution without external permission. Let me give you the formula. Clarity of purpose plus emotional detachment plus silence of motive plus ruthless mental discipline equals wealth. Everything else is distraction in disguise. And no disguise is more deceptive than the one called connection. Be warned. They will tell you that connection builds bridges, but some bridges lead to gossip, some bridges lead to comparison, some bridges lead to the abyss of distraction, where dreams go to die. Do not build bridges with everyone. Build walls around your attention. Build gates around your emotional world. Let only a few pass through, and even fewer stay. Not everyone deserves access to your evolving mind. Not everyone can handle your transformation. Not everyone can witness your rise and still support it. Some smile as they sabotage you. Some listen only to imitate. Some encourage you only so they can later claim your success as their influence. You must become ruthless not with others, but with your boundaries. You must become sovereign not in politics, but in thought. You must become sacred not in ritual, but in what you choose to protect. Your energy is not community property. Your strategy is not public knowledge. Your path is not a group discussion. Now let me speak to the psychology of silence. Silence is not passive. It is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is, in fact, the most aggressive position a man can take in a noisy world. Why? Because silence forces others to confront your results. It removes their ability to manipulate your narrative. It denies them the satisfaction of your emotional data. And in a world addicted to drama, silence is power in its purest form. Every time you do not react, you rise. Every time you say nothing, you conserve. Every time you disappear to build, you multiply. The poor man cannot understand this. He lives through expression. He bleeds emotion. He announces plans, hopes for praise, posts his struggle, begs for empathy, and confuses vulnerability with strategy. But the rich man knows. He knows that discipline is invisible, that growth is quiet. That transformation does not demand an audience. He knows that every time he shares, he divides himself, and he refuses to be divided. Now I must tell you of a trap, the deadliest trap of modern man, the addiction to being known. It masquerades as ambition. It hides behind words like branding, networking, authenticity. But I tell you the truth, it is self-obsession wrapped in noble language. You must kill this addiction. You must become a ghost while you build, a shadow while you strategize, a storm in the silence. And when your work is done, when the system is built, the mind is forged, and the results are unshakable, then and only then may you step into the light. But even then you speak only to direct, not to explain, not to prove, not to seek approval. Because the man who explains too much is trying to convince himself, and the man who tries to convince himself is not ready to lead others. The leader does not seek reassurance. He seeks results. And results are only born in the laboratory of disciplined solitude. If you want to build an empire, you must first master your inner monarchy. You must become king over your thoughts, your moods, your responses. You must rule your attention like a sovereign rules his land, with vigilance, with protection, and with zero tolerance for invaders. Now, let us speak of detachment. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the governance of it. It is the refusal to let feelings become instructions. It is the trained ability to observe a storm and still move forward. If you cannot detach, you cannot decide. If you cannot decide, you cannot act. And if you cannot act on your own authority, on your own command, from your own standard, you will remain beneath your potential for life. Detachment gives birth to accurate thinking. And accurate thinking is the most valuable tool in the builder's arsenal. You must think beyond emotion. You must act beyond approval. You must decide beyond fear. For fear will scream louder the closer you get to independence, and you will never silence it by sharing. You only silence fear by mastery, and mastery is born in isolation. Let me tell you something the weak will hate. No one is coming to save you. No audience will heal you. No applause will repair your self-doubt. Only the inner decision to detach from noise will unlock your mind. So I ask you, do you want to be seen or do you want to be sovereign? You cannot be both. The one who is seen too soon is consumed by perception. The one who waits, who works, who watches, who builds, he commands perception. This is not a game of being liked. It is a game of being effective. And effectiveness comes from energy, and energy comes from stillness, and stillness comes from mental discipline. Discipline to not share what is sacred. Discipline to not speak until the structure is solid. Discipline to not react, but to respond. Discipline to not be seen building, only to be seen winning. If you are still listening, still absorbing, still with me in this moment, then something inside you already knows. This message is not for the many. It is for the few, the builders, the disciplined, the sovereigns of their own mind. Now hear this clearly. There is no such thing as passive wealth. There is only controlled wealth. And to control wealth, you must first control attention. To control attention, you must sever emotional dependence. And to sever emotional dependence, you must master detachment from the external world. You cannot get rich while still clinging to the psychological patterns that make men poor. And the need to share, to be validated, to be affirmed, these are the very patterns that sabotage your fortune before it's ever earned. The rich do not explain themselves. They do not announce their ambitions. They do not crowdsource their confidence. They decide in silence. They build in silence. They strike with precision. And the world, stunned by their results, finally listens. You see, influence is not granted, it is assumed by the man who needs no permission to act. Let me now teach you what I call the 3 stages of silence, each essential to becoming unstoppable. Stage 1, strategic silence. At this stage, you no longer announce your every move. You withhold your next step. You let people wonder. You allow your silence to stir speculation while your execution creates reality. This form of silence protects your mental resources. It shields your ideas from unnecessary feedback. It conserves the very fuel that will ignite your success. Stage 2, emotional silence. This is more difficult. It requires that you feel deeply, but respond wisely, that you do not react to disrespect, gossip, betrayal, or false praise. Because every emotional response is an energetic withdrawal. Every outburst is an overdraft on your mental bank account. You cannot build a fortress with broken bricks, so you must learn to be still when triggered, calm when challenged, focused when tested. Stage 3, existential silence. This is where your detachment becomes total. You no longer live for perception at all. You operate beyond the emotional marketplace. You no longer need the world to see you, hear you, or know you, because your identity is rooted in purpose, not attention. In this state, wealth chases you, because power respects sovereignty, and sovereignty is born when you are free from the need to explain your path. You now become untouchable. Let me be clear. Your silence will offend the weak. Your withdrawal will be called arrogance. Your calm will be labeled cold. Let them talk. You are not here to fit the script others wrote for you. You are here to become the author of your own. And the pen is held by silence. Now I must destroy another lie, perhaps the deadliest one of all, that the more open you are, the more opportunities you attract. This is false. Opportunities are attracted to power, not performance. And power is built in concentration, in depth, in obsession, in the type of focus that turns away from the world for a season to dominate it for a lifetime. The man who is always available, always visible, always engaged in the noise, he has no mystery. And without mystery, there is no magnetism. You must learn the law of magnetism. When you become rare, you become valuable. When you become silent, you become unpredictable. And when you become unpredictable, you become powerful. Every time you withhold your opinion, you gain leverage. Every time you delay your reaction, you regain control. Every time you say nothing where others chatter, you elevate your authority. This is not manipulation. It is alignment with higher law. And here is the greatest paradox. When you stop trying to be impressive, you become impressive. When you stop trying to be known, you become respected. When you stop sharing for applause, you build a legacy that outlives the applause. Now let me ask you directly. Do you want to impress strangers, or do you want to master your fate? Do you want to be remembered for your content or your character? Do you want to create ripples in the feed or earthquakes in the real world? Because you cannot do both. If you spend your life marketing your journey instead of mastering your craft, you will gain followers but lose your future. But if you disappear to sharpen your edge, to build your temple, to construct your empire brick by brick in solitude, the world will not just watch you, it will follow your blueprint. And that, my friend, is true influence. Not likes, not shares, but a legacy of discipline that others will try and fail to copy. Now listen to me carefully, because this may be the last wake-up call your destiny sends you before it moves on to someone else. You must unplug your mind from the emotional economy. You must stop narrating your life to people who do not pay your bills, share your values, or respect your mission. You must stop outsourcing your self-worth to engagement metrics and public perception. You must take back your attention, reallocate your focus, and become intolerant of anything that wastes your inner power. Because if you don't, you will remain a slave not to people, but to your own lack of discipline. And no amount of ambition can save a man who leaks his power through his mouth. Every second you spend explaining is a second not spent executing. Every detail you share is a weapon someone else can use against you. Every confession you offer to the public is a compromise of your command. So I give you permission, if you need it, to go dark. To go deep, to go private. Not to hide, but to build your mind, build your standards, build your wealth, build your peace. Then and only then step into the light, not to ask for attention, but to dominate the space in silence. Because true success makes no noise when it arrives. It only echoes after it conquers. You now stand at a fork in the road. One path leads to emotional reactivity, public overexposure, and spiritual depletion. It leads to burnout, to mediocrity, to being known but not respected. The other path? It leads to mastery, to silence, to wealth, but only if you can kill the need to be seen before the work is finished. So what will you choose? There is a threshold all great men must cross. It is not made of money. It is not paved with applause. It is not built from connections. It is a silent, invisible threshold that exists between who you have been and who you are willing to become. You cannot cross it with noise. You cannot cross it while explaining your intentions. You cannot cross it while seeking the permission of those who fear what you are becoming. You cross it when you accept, finally and fully, that you are not here to be liked. You are here to be legendary. And legends are not written in conversation. They are written in action, in sacrifice, in relentless silence until the mission is fulfilled. The man who talks is preparing. The man who builds is becoming. And the man who becomes, he speaks without words. His results roar. His silence speaks a language only the disciplined can hear. Now let me speak to your resistance, because it is real. You may be thinking, but I want to inspire people. I want to share my story. Let me clarify. You are not forbidden to inspire. You are forbidden to leak. Inspiration is not exposure, and exposure is not strength. When you share a completed lesson, it is wisdom. When you share a half-baked process, it is indulgence. You must learn to protect the timeline of your transformation. Your seed must become a root before it becomes a tree, and it must become a tree before it bears fruit. Only then may the world taste what you have cultivated. But what do most do? They show the seed, they announce the planting, they invite others to observe the root, and the moment they feel eyes upon them, the seed withers. Because pressure without purpose is poison, and when you invite others into your sacred process without structure, you sabotage your strength. So I say again, withdraw, but withdraw strategically. Withdraw not to retreat, but to realign. Withdraw not to hide, but to hone. Withdraw not to vanish, but to multiply in power until your presence demands attention without effort. This is the elite standard. This is the creed of those who ascend without apology. This is the inner law of those who build legacies instead of likes. Now understand this. Silence is not enough. You must also cultivate stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. Stillness is activity refined to precision. It is the power to wait without anxiety, to act without noise, to decide without broadcasting. Stillness is the spiritual twin of wealth. The two are inseparable. A still mind is a wealthy mind. A still spirit is a powerful spirit. And only the man who has trained himself to be calm amidst chaos, detached amidst drama, focused amidst noise, only he can claim the throne of greatness. Now I tell you this final truth. You will be tempted. Tempted to share again, to post, to explain, to show people you are still moving. But each time you yield to that temptation, remind yourself, you don't owe the world your process, you owe it your results. You don't exist to entertain curiosity. You exist to fulfill destiny. And destiny never negotiates with distraction. So the next time you feel the need to announce your plans, say nothing. The next time you crave recognition, turn inward. The next time you want the world to understand, you understand yourself instead. Because when you know who you are, the world cannot define you. And when the world cannot define you, it cannot control you. And when it cannot control you, you become dangerous. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to limitation, dangerous to every version of you that ever settled for less than dominion. That is the goal, not wealth alone, but dominion over self, not applause alone, but command of attention without performance, not followers, but freedom. And freedom begins the moment you stop narrating your life and start living it with precision. So what is the ultimate command? It is this. Go silent until you're undeniable. Go still until your power becomes magnetic. Go sovereign until nothing outside you dictates what happens inside you. And when you rise, do so without fanfare. Do so without explanation. Do so like the tide, unannounced but inevitable. Because those who master the art of not sharing, master the science of building. And those who master the science of building own the game of life. The world will not understand your silence, but it will never be able to ignore your success. Now walk away from the noise, walk into yourself, and build in silence. Because every empire begins with a decision in the dark. And now the light is yours to ignite. There comes a time in the life of every man when he must stop making sense of his delay and begin making war on his hesitation. That time is now, not tomorrow, not once the stars align, not when he feels ready, but now in the present moment when the soul begins to whisper louder than the excuses. You see, most men live in a prison with no visible walls, a prison of overthinking, emotional reactivity, mental clutter, and the exhausting desire to be liked by everyone and committed to nothing. They confuse noise with motion. They mistake hesitation for wisdom. They idolize planning and fear execution. And so they think, and they think, and they think, but they do not act. Their thoughts become chains. Their emotions become tyrants. Their minds become battlegrounds where their potential is slaughtered daily, not by failure, but by inaction. This is not weakness of body, it is weakness of mind. It is the failure to recognize a simple truth. Thinking without action is the slowest form of suicide. And emotion without discipline is a cancer to destiny. You were not born to hesitate. You were born to command. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Until you master your inner world, nothing you build in the outer world will last. Until you conquer the battlefield of emotion and discipline the chatter of thought, every goal will be sabotaged from within. What then is the root of the delay? It is not a lack of knowledge. It is not a lack of opportunity. It is not a lack of time. It is a lack of emotional detachment. Let me tell you something most men never hear. The man who feels too much and thinks too long does nothing of consequence. But the man who sees emotion for what it is, a wave, not a command, becomes invincible. Emotional detachment is not the absence of care. It is the refusal to let temporary feelings disrupt permanent purpose. It is the steel nerve behind every great decision. It is the spiritual discipline of choosing power over reaction, purpose over approval, clarity over confusion. Until a man learns to detach from outcome, from judgment, from fear, he is forever a slave to his lesser instincts. But the moment he learns this secret, the moment he rises above his emotions like a pilot rises above the storm clouds, he becomes something rare, a man of focus. And that man, my friend, is the man who bends reality to his will. The masses will call him lucky. They'll say he's gifted or he's fearless. But the truth is this: he simply stopped thinking and started doing. And when he acted despite fear, despite doubt, despite discomfort, the universe began to shift. He no longer sought motivation. He became motion. He no longer asked for permission. He became decision. He no longer reacted to life. He became the cause of it. That, my friend, is your calling. That is what this speech is, not a lecture, but a call to arms. The battlefield is your mind. The enemy is hesitation. And the weapon is action, clean, focused, disciplined, detached action. But how does one begin? Let us now uncover the core principles that make up the mental architecture of men who move mountains. Principle 1, definiteness of purpose. A man without a clearly defined goal is a kite in a hurricane, moved by everything, anchored by nothing. Until you define your aim in crystal clear language, you are chasing ghosts. Do not say, "I want success." That is vague. Say, "I will become the leader of my industry in 5 years." Do not say, "I want more money." Say, "I will build an income of $100,000 within 12 months through skill and consistency." The mind is a precision instrument. It does not respond to fog. It responds to focus. Write your goal. Speak it daily. Align your actions to it, and then cut off all retreat. You either achieve it or you become the man who would. Principle 2, self-discipline. Discipline is not something you do. It is something you are. It is your agreement with yourself that your feelings will never outrank your decisions. Discipline says, "I do it whether I feel like it or not. I show up even when no one sees me. I act even when fear whispers." Every act of discipline is a vote for the man you are becoming. Every act of laziness is a betrayal to that man. And here is a secret. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. If your standard is emotional reactivity, you will never lead. If your standard is delay, you will never build. If your standard is only when I feel like it, you will remain average. But raise your standard to one word: consistency, and you will become unstoppable. Principle 3, autosuggestion. The mind is programmable. Your subconscious does not judge, it obeys. If you feed it worry, it will serve you fear. If you feed it doubt, it will serve you paralysis. If you feed it command, vision, power, it will build an empire under your rule. Speak to your mind like a general speaks to his troops. Every morning say, "I am focused, I am detached, I am disciplined, I act with clarity, I think before I speak, I lead with my mind, not my moods." Say it when it feels like a lie. That is when it becomes truth. Because repetition is how the mind learns to obey you. And once your mind obeys you, everything else must follow. Principle 4, mastery over emotion. Emotion is the invisible force that sabotages more success than poverty ever could. Not because emotion is the enemy, but because undisciplined emotion is. Understand this: emotion is like fire. Controlled, it heats homes, forges steel, and powers engines. Uncontrolled, it burns down cities. The man who cannot govern his emotion cannot govern his destiny. He will chase shadows, fight ghosts, respond to insults, and defend distractions. He will spend his energy trying to feel good rather than do good. He will argue for limitations. He will retreat when he should advance, and he will wonder why success eludes him. You must master the difference between response and reaction. A reaction is impulsive. It is animal. It is what the world expects from the undisciplined. A response is calculated. It is power contained. It is the weapon of kings. Every time you feel the pull to react, pause. Every time anger surges, observe it. Every time fear whispers, confront it. Not with denial, but with detachment. You are not your emotion. You are the master of it. You are not the thought. You are the thinker. You are not the storm. You are the sky it passes through. And when you learn this, truly learn this, a supernatural calmness settles in your bones. You will speak less, but with more weight. You will act slower, but with more impact. You will become still, and in that stillness, others will feel your power. Principle 5, accurate thinking. Most men do not think. They repeat. They recycle opinions. They call emotion truth. But truth is not what you feel. It is what remains after you strip away feeling, bias, assumption, and noise. Accurate thinking is the art of separating fact from fiction. It is not glamorous, but it is power. The man who thinks accurately sees 10 steps ahead, while others are still reacting to step 1. He does not exaggerate his fears nor romanticize his potential. He deals in reality, and because he sees clearly, he moves decisively. Ask yourself, whenever doubt arises, is this true, or is it just familiar? Is this fact, or is it fear in disguise? Is this worth my energy, or is it a trap? Think cleanly, think critically, think independently, and above all, think for yourself. The greatest victory in the modern world is not wealth. It is the ability to think a thought that did not come from someone else's mouth. Now, once these principles are internalized, definiteness of purpose, self-discipline, autosuggestion, mastery over emotion, and accurate thinking, you will begin to feel something shift. You will no longer ask, what should I do? You will simply do it. You will no longer wonder, what if I fail? You will know that failure is the tuition of mastery. You will no longer wait for the perfect time. You will move, because the time is now. And now, my friend, we arrive at a crossroads. The line that divides the man who builds a legacy from the man who collects regrets. On one side stands hesitation dressed in logic, disguised as wisdom, drunk on comfort, whispering, later. On the other stands action sober, focused, detached, decisive, declaring, now. And your future will be determined by which one you obey, not once, but every single day. So I leave you with this command. Not a suggestion, not advice, but a declaration that echoes across the walls of every empire ever built. Stop thinking. Start doing. Success is waiting. Waiting not for the lucky, but for the focused. Waiting not for the gifted, but for the consistent. Waiting not for the emotional, but for the detached. Waiting not for the reactive, but for the relentless. You were not born to hesitate. You were born to command. You were not born to drift. You were born to direct. You were not born to seek permission. You were born to execute. So rise, not later, not when you feel like it, not when the noise subsides. Rise now in the fire of decision, in the silence of clarity, in the power of self-command. Do not announce it. Do not wait for applause. Do not beg for support. Become the man the world cannot ignore. And your life, your success, your future, your freedom will not be a mystery. It will be the inevitable result of a man who mastered the most sacred battlefield of all, his own mind.